You know, I really have no words for what I watched in The Dark Side of the Ring with Chris Benoit tonight. I will tell you this, I watched part one a few days ago and it got me just as emotional then. The stupid part is I watched it at 2 a.m. in the morning, which that was my dumb decision. But I was really dying to watch it, so I said, alright, fuck it, I'm gonna watch it. I watched it anyway. And I loved it, but it was emotional and it was hard to get through. And if you have not seen this documentary yet, for the love of God, go watch it. Like, I require you to watch it. You can't sit here and not watch it. If you are a wrestling fan, you've been in this business for watching this business for a long time, I'm telling you that is the best thing that you can do right now. Is watch this documentary. It'll be a roller coaster ride of emotions. The thing that I want to bring up before I get started is on David Benoit. I was going to talk about it with someone later, but I can't really hold it in anymore, so I want to get it out. It's not David's fault for what happened with Chris, which is his father. It is not his fault. David Benoit doesn't deserve the hate. He did not kill his family. He's a victim in the situation, and I feel so bad for him. I feel for him. I can't even imagine what he goes through every day, and it's been 13 years, and I'm sure it's just as hard to talk about now than it is back then. I don't think no one can ever recover from something like that, no matter what. But the fact that people give him shit, tell him, "Oh, you're never. We don't want to see you in a ring. You don't deserve to be in a ring with your father." Like, are you fucking serious? What did David do? David did not kill his family. He was a victim just like them. Just like Nancy, he didn't deserve that. Just David Benoit doesn't deserve to be treated this way. He deserves to be a wrestler, and he'll probably wrestle for AEW one day. And I am assuming he will when he gets to training. David Benoit doesn't deserve to be held back from wrestling. Now, would I say he should use his name that he wants to use? Absolutely not. I think he should just stick with David Benoit, unless he wants to come up with another name. But I think his name alone and the last name is fine, unless he wants to change it. But if he wrestles for AEW one day, I would not use Chris. I would not use it. I mean, it's his choice. I mean, I'm not going to stop it. But you might have to think about there will be a lot of issues especially from the snowflakes in the community, that if he does it, change his name to Chris for a wrestler's name, that he's going to get a lot of shit for it. Not from me, but there is going to be backlash. But it is his decision, and he shouldn't listen to the haters. Overall, the documentary was great. I liked how they went back into their early life in Japan, how Chris started with Stampede Wrestling, and how they told the story of how he met Chris, how he wrestled Chris in Japan. I remember that match from the Super J Cup. I've seen that 5 times. I obviously wasn't alive in 1995 to live it, but I watched that match about a year and a half ago, and it was an awesome match. I checked it out. I found it on YouTube one day, and it was amazing. Then they were talking about the story of how he met Eddie, and I'm not surprised. I think I did hear a little bit that Eddie and Benoit didn't have a good start at first, but then they wound up becoming best friends, so I think I knew a little bit about that, but not in detail. It was great to see how it all came about. then they were talking about WCW and everything, and how he went up with Eddie, Dean, Perry Saturn. They went up to WF at the time. So we're going through that backstory, and I think that was, and they were talking about their friendship mainly. The part one was mainly talking about their friendship, their close bond that they had, and they're talking about how they always had each other's back and how they were always there for each other, or tell each other secrets, like personal things. Like they had like that best friend type vibe. Like I have that type best friend. Like I go to him about my stuff. I don't go to anyone else but him, and I tell him my stuff. I mean, I get it. I mean, you got that one friend you can go to anyone to, and you could talk to him about. Like, yeah, I totally get it. Um, they were talking about Eddie's injuries, and because they were on the road a lot, and they were dedicated to their craft. They didn't want to take days off, and Eddie had to go through his injuries, and he had drinking and alcohol, and I was amazed by that story of what he went through. And he pretty much, I think from all the drinking and everything, I'm sure that played an effect. Of course, he got clean and he got himself in the best shape of his life, but I think what happened definitely played a big effect of what happened a few years later, because he came back to WWE, I believe, in like 2002, and he wound up having one of the best careers in the history of the company those last 3 years of his life. And it was crazy to see. And then they were showing the moment from WrestleMania 20, and like that's probably the realest thing you'll ever see. That's probably in my honest opinion, that's probably the greatest WrestleMania ending of all time. There's no other ending. I mean, yeah, you had Daniel Bryan winning the world titles at WrestleMania 30 a long time ago, but I don't think there's ever going to be any other ending that's symbolic than Eddie and Chris Benoit hugging in the middle of the ring after the match was over, the triple threat. Then things got really dark real quick, because it's called Darkside of the Ring, so it had to get dark. I mean, we saw this coming, but we knew how Eddie died in his hotel room from heart disease and everything. The thing that was very revealing that I teared up from was that hearing Chavo's story from the person himself, what really happened that day. Chavo going to the hotel room, and pretty much Eddie died in his arms. He was not dead yet when he found Eddie, and that I did not know. And he died in his arms, and that was hard to take in. That's awful, having your uncle die in your hands. I can't even imagine that feeling. And then Chris Benoit bawling and losing control and screaming, like, that really hit. And that shows the type of friendship they had and that bond. Obviously, there was issues with Benoit, because if he was crying so much and everything that he was going through, there was obviously issues going on because of the CTE and everything, that it makes a lot of sense now why he was acting the way he was. Yes, anyone would have acted that way, even if you had it or not. But I think, in reality, I think the CTE played his emotions a lot more, and he couldn't control them as much because of the CTE. So that was the truth of it all. I don't think you could stop something like that. I don't think Benoit was ever the same after what happened. I don't think he ever recovered. And you can tell that it affected him for the rest of his career. He was never the same guy. I think he should have took a break for a while and stepped away, but he was just, I agree that he probably just didn't know what else to do, but I think it's always better to like take a break and get away for a while. If everything you see represents Eddie, you should take a break. If you're just not taking it well, I think he should have took a break, but it was his choice at the time, obviously. But then we got farther in, and then you could they were talking about the paranoia. People were having the conspiracy theories that with the innocent of Benoit and everything, and I think the CTE caused him to see and feel things that were out of his control, that weren't real. And I don't, there was no one following him. It was pretty much part of his CTE. Like, it was not, that's just my, from what I saw, that because of the CTE, he had no control of what he was doing, and he had thoughts of paranoia, basically. Benoit, then they got to the darkest part of the show, and that is that that it was the Nancy, his son, and Benoit died, and that was hard to take in, and that was intense. That was the most intense thing, that we were expecting it to be intense. We were expecting it to be that way. I think some of the other things that I was not expecting was how emotional I was going to get when David was talking. You can tell, hearing David's story, it was so hard for him to talk about. He was about to talk about the April before it happened, and he just lost. I'm assuming that was like one of the last times they like hanged out together before everything went to shit. And it's probably really hard for him to talk about, and I lost control. I kind of cried from it too. And that was really tough pill to swallow, and that was really hard to get through. They were talking about the steroids. I mean, I knew about this, was all stuff I've learned about a few years ago. It was stuff I already knew, but it was obviously still interesting to hear about, and from the actual people involved. And they were talking about the steroids and the testosterone, and that was obviously obvious. I always think that WWE's wellness is bullshit. As much as it's gotten stricter, I always think their wellness policy has been bullshit from day one. Because now it's absolutely bullshit, because you have part-timers and they don't test their part-timers. They probably don't test. I'm sure they've tested people who've known about it, and they haven't said anything, you know. They don't test Brock and everything. I know their test is bullshit, but that's just my view. I know they've gotten stricter with it, but something about that test they need to fix. I'm sure they fixed it by now. I mean, the technology's gotten higher by then, but obviously someone really fucked up checking Benoit if he had all that testosterone in him. Testosterone obviously did not play a part, though. Again, his brain, because of all the diving headbutts, he had a brain of like an 85, 90-year-old man from all the concussions he had, because the funny thing is, 6 months before he committed the murders, he went to that guy who researched his brain. I forgot his name, the wrestler's name. If you remember the name, sound off in the comments. But he pretty much asked him questions about. He knew that he was hurt. Like, he knew that he had a concussion. Like, he knew. Benoit knew he was hurt, but nothing came about from it. And, you know, he was trying to get help, and I think it was just too late. So I think there was an effort that Benoit was trying to check and see. He knew something was wrong with him, but I think by the time passed, I think he was just losing control, and he just couldn't do anything at that point. It was it's kind of crazy to learn about. And then they were talking about how David pretty much got banned from WWE. I know he's been let backstage, but everyone pretty much ignored him after everything that happened. And Chris and Chavo went to him and helped him, which I gained a lot of respect for Chavo and Chris. I already had respect for them, but the respect I have for them now after watching that, through the roof. Like, never gonna lose that respect. What Chris did, getting him back with his aunt and everything, that was awesome. Like, David didn't deserve I don't think those two didn't deserve to feel that distance apart like that. They didn't deserve to have that, and I'm glad that Jericho was able to get them to reconcile, because that's a shitty situation, and I'm glad that they're trying to at least bring some brightness and some light into that dark world. David Benoit was talking about, he was talking about all with WWE ignoring him, and then Jericho and Chavo coming in too. So that, like I just said, I gained a lot of respect from him for that. I don't know what else. It was so much put into one. Now, I guess I'm gonna go into this because I'm gonna bring this up now. Should Chavo Guerrero go into the Hall of Fame? People ask if Chavo should go in. If Chris Benoit should go in the Hall of Fame. I'm like still thinking about Chavo. I think I actually said Chavo. If Chris Benoit should go in the Hall of Fame, my view. Here's what I'll tell you. I'll tell you right now that Chris Benoit is never going in the Hall of Fame. If you saw Jim Ross talk tonight, and he said it on his podcast before, do not expect WWE to put him in the Hall of Fame. The thing that you have to understand is Benoit still did what he did. He still killed his family in his home. There's no going back from that. Yes, he had CTE, he had no control, but like, the deal is he still killed his family, and I don't think he's ever going to be put in Hall of Fame. He's never going to get mentioned again. He's not going to get recognition. He's always going to be silent from the WWE books forever. And that's all I have to say. He's not going in the Hall of Fame. Do I think he should go in the Hall of Fame? I don't know. Personally, probably not a good idea. Would I love to see him in the Hall of Fame for success? Yes, but I understand why he shouldn't be put in it. And I think it's just better just to remember him as the wrestler he was. There's wrestlers like Owen Hart that need to still go in, obviously, which we'll talk about later another day. But from Chris Benoit, from my perspective, I think I understand both situations, but I totally understand why WWE wouldn't want to do that. Because, yes, Chris Benoit is one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. But he still did what he did. He's never going to be put in the Hall of Fame. And in ways, I don't blame WWE for not putting him in the Hall of Fame. If he gets put in the Hall of Fame or not, it won't make a difference with me. It's people's choices what they want to do, but personally, I'll tell you right now, it's never happening, and I think everyone should just let it go. Benoit is not innocent. He did what he did. I know people have their conspiracy theories, with WWE magazines posting this and Chavo saying nah. WWE, Chris Benoit's name was already erased when those series came out, and they weren't allowed to say his name on anything WWE related. Benoit did commit the murders. He did hang himself, but yes, he had CTE and he had no control. That's all I will say. Overall, great documentary. Probably my favorite Darkside of the Ring series so far. I'm looking forward. Next week is New Jack. That's going to be premiering next week. New Jack. So I really want to see that one. Don't know much about that, knowing that how violent he is in the ring. I really do want to see that. So I will see you guys tomorrow for the Dynamite review. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Peace out.